name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lake Ahmad Atif, President of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community in Malta, your host tonight. It is an immense privilege and honor welcoming you all to this Peace Symposium, being organized by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Malta. And thank you very much for sparing your valuable time to join us at this very special event. We hope you will enjoy tonight's program. The Peace Symposium is an annual event which brings together well-known and esteemed scholars from the world's major religions, politicians, and dignitaries to speak on a common topic from the point of view of their respective religion or political affiliations. For last many years, the Peace Symposium has served as an invaluable forum for different religious communities and political parties to gather in the spirit of tolerance, peace, cooperation, brotherhood, respect, and understanding. It also serves the noble cause of education regarding interesting and relevant topics by providing a platform where major religions and political parties can pool their collective wisdom, teachings, and ideas. Tonight, we'll have 4 very distinguished speakers with us who will deliver their talks and will share their perspective and thoughts about the contemporary world crisis and the way to peace. We have the following speakers: Honorable Dr. Justyne Caruana, Member of Parliament representing the Government and Malta Labour Party; Honorable Dr. Mario Di Marco, Member of Parliament and Deputy Leader for the Nationalist Party representing his party; Monsignor Mario Grech, Bishop of Gozo, he will be representing Christianity; and Dr. Iftikhar Ahmad Ayaz, OBE, and he will be representing Islam and Ahmadi community. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, you have pen and piece of paper with you, please write down your questions. In the end, you will be having an opportunity to ask your questions or express your comments. Now I would like to request respected Mr. Abdullah Wagishauser, the National President of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community in Germany, to preside the session. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and ever merciful. I'm very pleased to stand here in front of you and preside this session. And the reason why I have come from Germany over here is very simply that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Malta is a very small community in the moment, and it is supported by the German Jamaat. We help and we provide, means for this community, and therefore we are helping in holding this Peace Symposium as well. From my side, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Peace Symposium 2014. For more than 100 years, exactly 125 years, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been leading a peaceful revival of Islam. From the time it was founded in India in 1889, it has enjoyed an unrivaled record of peace for its efforts to build cohesive societies. Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat is a community that stands for education, integration, and interfaith peace. And we welcome all to visit our seminars and events that bring people together to understand more about each other. We are also committed to helping others, engaging local communities, and working for the common good. We believe that Islam, which was established over 1400 years ago by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is a universal religion of peace with a simple but perfect message for mankind to develop and maintain a living relationship with the living God, and to live in perfect harmony with all. This message was revived by the founder of our community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and we are the only community of Muslims today to have accepted him as the promised Messiah and Mahdi, who was prophesied for this age by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ 1400 years ago. From the outset, he repeatedly emphasized the need for us to be mindful of our duty to God and His creation, and to reflect our commitment to peace in our daily lives. He rejected the concept of a violent jihad, reminded us of the equality of mankind and of our duty to care for the needy. He also underlined the need to respect all religions, to abide by the law of the land, and to be loyal to the government of the country in which we live, wherever it is in the world. With this desire to promote peace, this community has since flourished and is now a dynamic global movement established in more than 204 countries. Recently, a renowned professor of Islamic science in Germany, Professor Fuchs, has made a statement. He said, the biggest community in Islam are the Sunnis, the second biggest are the Shias, and the third biggest are the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat worldwide. And one has to be made clear too that the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, the present Khalif, is the leader in the Islamic world with the largest followership. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat contains in the moment many 10 million members throughout the world. Since the founder's demise in 1908, we have been led by a series of caliphs or spiritual leaders. The present being is His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, and this form of global leadership is another distinctive feature of this community. It is a pure religious community, and the leadership, the Khalafat, is a pure religious spiritual leadership. We have no political ambitions. He continues to relay the message of peace to the corners of the earth, and a message that has been reflected in action by the community through humanitarian efforts by men, women, and the youth of the community. In fact, the members of the community willingly give time and money for relief work, even in the remote parts of the globe, to help those in need regardless of creed or color. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat believes and practices its famous motto, love for all, hatred for none. With this brief introduction, now I would like to introduce you our first very special esteemed speaker tonight. We were supposed to have Honorable Dr. George Vella, Minister of Foreign Affairs, with us tonight, but he had to travel with the Prime Minister, and when the Prime Minister calls, what you can do. And now we are honored to have Honorable Dr. Justyne Caruana, Member of Parliament, representing the government on the behalf of Honorable Dr. George Vella. Dr. Justyne Caruana is a lawyer by profession. She was first elected to Parliament in 2003 from Gozo, being the first female Labour Party member of Parliament from Gozo, and was nominated as opposition spokesperson for youth, culture and sports, and nominated for Outstanding Youth of the Year. After her re-election in 2008, she was appointed as spokesperson for family, children and disability. In 2013, she was elected to Parliament for a third time. Dr. Caruana is a member of the Public Accounts Committee and head of delegation of the French-Maltese Friendship Parliamentary Group, amongst others. May I invite her for the speech, please? Yes.
Dankeschön, Mr. President, Your Excellency, Monsignor Mario Grech, Honorable Dr. DeMarco, a colleague of mine, Dr. Iftikhar, been a pleasure meeting you, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I wish to thank the organizers of the symposium for this invitation to address you this evening on this very important topic of contemporary world crisis and the way to peace. As you all know, there are no quick fixes to anything, and peace obviously is no exception. And therefore, we have to do all that we can do, both on an individual basis and also as a society, to create an environment where peace could nurture and grow. On an international level, efforts in this direction have been going on since the dawn of time. However, if we had to focus on recent history, it suffices to point out the establishment of 4 major supranational institutions, namely the United Nations in 1945, the Council of Europe in 1949, the European Union in 1951, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe in 1975, which all in their own ways replied to the 2 world wars, which incidentally this year we commemorate their 100th and 70th anniversaries respectively. We are all indebted to the work and dedication of all these organizations, and I think that we all agree that the world would not have been the same without them. However, and in spite of the efforts employed towards the maintaining of peace and the conventions which were directly and indirectly established and ratified in this regard, more needs to be done in order to render our world a safer place for everybody. According to political activist and theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, there is no safe way to peace. He says that peace must always be dared, as complacency makes it become a utopia or makes it become unreal. Bonhoeffer died in a concentration camp on the same day that the war was declared over. However, his inspiration towards the true value of peace and justice goes on. In fact, whenever freedom, democracy, respect for human rights, and the rule of law were somehow or other dampened, people suffered all kinds of hardships. One classic example in the long list of such occurrences is certainly the Arab Spring, which saw people as protagonists of their own fate as they toppled down long-standing regimes in their respective countries. It may be argued that so far in these same countries, peace did not resume because conflicts continue to hamper any attempts towards the resumption of normality. However, it is precisely because these countries were either failed states or states ruled by despotic rulers that make it hard for them to come to terms with a new culture of peace built on mutual understanding and kinship. In his Multiculturalism, Examining the Politics of Recognition, contemporary philosopher Charles Taylor notes the following, and I will quote: "We define our identity always in dialogue with, sometimes struggle against, the things our significant others want to see in us. Even after we outgrow some of these others, our parents, for instance, and they disappear from our lives, the conversation with them continues within us as long as we live." Unquote. Indeed, we are the result of our culture and the environment we grew up in. We are often in agreement with ourselves as much as we are in denial, and we tend to build upon experiences and converse at length with them, and yet we find that we hardly come close to who we really are and stand for. In other words, humanity derives from a set of principles that point towards a degree of authenticity, a region which is both personal, as it involves directly the self, and communal, as it provides the building blocks for a healthy society to grow. Maybe one way how we can make world crises become less conspicuous is by reading them as tangible opportunities to possibly make the once promised New World Order take shape. By this time next year, we'll be reviewing the UN Millennium Development Goals. At this juncture, it suffices to take a closer look at what the international community managed to obtain in 15 years of expediency to possibly meet the milestones set by itself for a better future for all. Unfortunately, while no efforts are spared in this regard, much has yet to be done to ensure that poverty is finally eradicated from the face of the earth, and that basic healthcare and education are accessible to everyone, especially to children. Water is still a matter of concern in many dry regions of the planet, and its scarcity risks becoming another reason for millions of people to migrate elsewhere. Here, I strongly believe that the establishment of the long-discussed parliamentary component to the UN General Assembly will help significantly this world organization to address such mandatory issues in a more democratic manner, and to allow for urgent matters to take priority over others. It suffices to note that if ever established, a parliamentary assembly to the UN will be more representative of citizens worldwide. However, up to now, this is still unfortunately a faraway dream, but allow me to say that it is not impossible. In the meantime, as the industrial world remains busy with its economic recovery programs, regions along the Sahel and Central Africa are left on their own to deal with internal strife and hardship, imposed by unscrupulous warlords who, in keeping with their immoral activity of smuggling in arms and people, are exposing thousands of innocent people to grave danger. While our condemnation to such organized crimes is without reserve, we cannot ignore the phenomenon of illegal immigration, which is rapidly turning the Mediterranean Sea into a cemetery to hundreds of innocent lives who, for want of a better life, are perishing at sea. Hence, our claim for bolder action by the European Union remain inspired by the inherent value of solidarity upon which the European project is built, and which therefore should move in the direction of effective burden sharing among European partners, as well as ensure that assistance to people in distress is available at all times. It may be argued that conflicts are all different in nature, and that motives triggering them are usually tantamount to a lack of freedom and basic human rights. It may also be propounded that religions on one hand and politics on the other are the sources of disparity rather than forces of unity. Whatever the case, we should always seek to come closer together and work in the path of tolerance and mutual respect. It is only through such deeds that we may succeed in mastering the importance of truth, which, due to its very nature, resolves to dialogue and companionship as true agents of change for all mankind. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this bold points which you have made in front of us. Now we're coming to our second distinguished and well-known speaker tonight. It is Honorable Mario De Marco. Dr. Mario De Marco studied at St. Ulrich College. He graduated in law from the University of Malta and furthered his studies at Cambridge University in UK, where he specialized in international commercial law. Dr. De Marco is a senior lecturer at the University of Malta, Faculty of Laws. Dr. Mario De Marco is a Maltese politician and academic, currently serving as a Member of Parliament. He's the son of former President Guido De Marco and is the current Deputy Leader for Parliamentary Affairs of the Nationalist Party. Dr. De Marco is also the Opposition Shadow Minister for the Economy, Investment and Small Enterprise. He has served in various posts such as Minister of Tourism. Here I would also like to mention that in 2010 his father, President Emeritus Professor Guido De Marco, also addressed our peace gathering at this place and delivered a wonderful and memorable speech. May I invite now Dr. DeMarco for his speech.
Your Excellency, Dr. Caruana, distinguished guests, dear hosts. The search for the way to peace is probably like a search for the Holy Grail, and it's ever elusive. I regret to start my speech by having to say the words that it would seem that war is inevitable. Now, it might sound strange to start an intervention on peace with the word war. However, I think that any discourse on peace has to take into account the inevitable historical fact that humankind and war and conflict are inseparable. We might not wish it to be that way. We might pray, work, dedicate our lives, as many of you are dedicating your lives, in the pursuit of peace. But we all know in the bottom of our hearts that war, civil strife, will at some point in time, presumably at any point in time, somewhere on the globe, happen. It is as if the pain and suffering of our ancestors is etched into the human DNA. Rather than reminding us of the horrors and pains of conflict, these memories fuel a morbid fascination mixed with a dangerous cocktail of violent cultural, tribal, national, and racial sentiments. These sentiments come to the fore whenever there is a call to arms. William James wrote that war taxes are the only ones men never hesitate to pay. So the question that we should be asking is whether the quest for peace is indeed futile. Is there any sense in trying to stop conflict when we know that there's always conflict going on the globe? Should we give up hope and accept the inevitability of war? The obvious answer is no. For every action, there should be indeed a reaction. For every movement towards conflict, there should be an effort for peace. For every drop of blood spilt in the conflict, we need to shed a tear for peace. And it was of this that I welcomed with open arms the invitation to address this gathering. We can never talk enough about peace. We can never overestimate the importance of promoting dialogue as a true solution and an alternative to conflict. No word uttered in the pursuit of a peaceful solution is a wasted word. Now, people are dying right now as we speak because of conflict. They are dying in the plains of Sudan, in the streets of Jordan, in the villages of Afghanistan. It is not only armed soldiers who are dying. The lives of men, women, and children are being wasted as we speak. Their untimely death will fuel more deaths. Now, certain conflicts have been going on for so long that the cause is indeed no longer clear. Hatred becomes self-sustaining. It is sad that so many lives are lost to vindicate history, rather than applied to build a better future. Now just think about the futility and senselessness of a father's pride as he watches his son taking up arms to avenge his ancestors' death. Death begets more deaths. And these deaths are not restricted to some faraway battlefields. With the advent of terrorism, war did not remain confined to the battlefields. Our cities became potential fields of war. New York, London, Istanbul. and so many other cities have seen ordinary citizens cut down by senseless violence. This is one of the new contemporary, if you like, elements of conflict, world crisis. Our generation has brought conflict closer to home, just as our predecessors upped the stakes of war by creating weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction were justified by the famous zero-sum theory. This theory fueled a Cold War that dominated world politics in the aftermath of the Second World War, lasting after the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Now, those of you who have lived through the Cold War, remember the disarmament talks between the two superpowers. Now, one of those most important summits was actually held on these islands between Bush and Gorbachev. And we rejoiced when an agreement was reached for a scaling down of the nuclear arsenal. We then watched in wonder as the Soviet Empire dissolved. We hoped that this would lead to world peace. Indeed, we saw a mushrooming of new conflicts. Perhaps different scale, but still there. More worrying, we are now seeing a proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, which are not counterbalanced by that famous zero-sum theory. Now, those who study war will teach us that certain ingredients are constant in the recipe of conflict. Most wars are driven by one of the mankind's obsessions, preservation. Our mind refuses to accept the inevitability of change, and to a certain degree, the fact that decay is part and parcel of humanity. In a bid to maintain a level of status quo, we build up geographical, cultural, religious, or racial borders, and then fight to preserve those borders. There's nothing contemporary in this. This has been the modus operandi since prehistory. Another major driver to conflict is our yearning to be better. How many wars were fought in the name of progress? To a certain extent, it is easy to identify the roots of conflict and war. That's easiest to ask. The difficulty comes in identifying the solutions. Religious leaders point us to prayer